We are back at 7:43 on this Friday morning, and there is a lot of hidden history in African American history in central Georgia. Did you know, for example, that before the Civil War, there were 50 known free black residents living and working in Macon? Megan Western continues the discussion on the upcoming project, Hidden Histories, Freed People of Color.
A special project called Hidden Histories, Free People of Color in Macon and Middle Georgia will be on exhibit at the Tubman Museum this summer. So joining us to talk a little bit more about that is genealogist Stephanie Woods Miller. She is one of the project's co-creators. So thanks so much for being in the studio with us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, go ahead and talk to us a little bit about this project that you are co-creating right now.
Okay. Well, I am a genealogist, but I'm an attorney by profession. So I work during the day, my day job, as Chief Deputy Clerk of the Bibb County Superior Court Clerk's Office. And after my father passed, I got very deep into genealogy. And one day I asked my pastor, I'm from a little town in the middle of Florida, Palaca, Florida. It's about an hour from Jacksonville. I think the most famous thing we're known for is the Bass Pro fishing tournament. So if you don't fish, you might not know it. But I asked my pastor, his name is Wilkes Flagg, if he would let me do the genealogy on his family, because I needed a subject to get my certification. And as I began to work on it, step by step by step, it took me closer and closer back here until I found the Flaggs in Macon and Middle Georgia. And in that process kind of ran headlong into some things that Brenda Williams had been talking about. And I called her one day and I was like, girl, I got it. I understand now. There's this community of free black people. And she was like, yes, that's what I was thinking, but I couldn't prove it. So we started working on that together. And his descendant is Reverend Wilkes Flagg, who was an enslaved person, but who began to live as free. Owned a business, a blacksmith shop in Milledgeville, and founded a church before slavery ended, Flagg Chapel Baptist Church. So it's still there. It's pastored by Reverend Omar Reed. And they created the Baptist Association. They did all these amazing things that you never would have thought that people who were free or presented themselves as free, or who just freed themselves, could do.
Yeah, Ms. Williams is co-creating this project with you. I know we spoke to her also this week. You guys are really just a wealth of knowledge when it comes to all the history in this area. Anything else that was interesting as you were doing your search, or your research that is, into Mr. Flagg's and how he was able to obtain his freedom?
I think what was very interesting is that a lot of times everything that we know about the period of enslavement, we know from movies. Right. And so you see very few stories of resistance. So what you may have seen, Harriet Tubman, who did amazing work, or maybe Nat Turner, but usually as a cautionary tale. But you don't really have an opportunity to see that slavery was multifaceted, and that people rebelled in very different ways. And it wasn't always setting something on fire. I mean, this man just walked out. He walked out and set up a business next door. And when he had opportunity, he bought land, and he gave other people an opportunity to farm on that land, so that when freedom came, that they would be ready, set up school, and then for his family still to exist today. And so now I'm running into Flags everywhere, and I go to a reunion. I had to tell them I'm not a member of the family. I'm not a member of the family, but it's amazing how you become so connected to that story, and then you realize that every family has a story. Yeah. Every family has a story, and they have a story that they have the right to reclaim. And so I think that's what genealogists attempt to do, is to give back to a family what was forgotten. And if you know where you come from, what you can be becomes so much bigger than what you may have imagined before.
Yeah. Talk to us a little bit more about what this exhibit at the Tubman will look like. Obviously, it's expected to be available in the summer. What will people be able to kind of really see and understand as they walk through?
Okay, so it is Free People of Color. So we both have kind of our favorites. They're the two that kind of kicked it off for us. but we'll also be highlighting some other free people of color. Henry McNeil Turner, who is one of the big founders of the AME Church, and went through the South forming AME churches. The post office here is, the main post office is the Henry McNeil Turner Post Office. And the work that he did is unbelievable. It really provided structure to both a people and a religion, because so much of the activism is born out of the church. Isaac Miller, who was born enslaved, was only freed by emancipation, but during slavery had the opportunity to learn how to read and write, became a big businessman in Fort Valley. And he is one of the founders of Fort Valley State University. And he's actually my husband's ancestor. So I'm very happy to work on his story, because now my children, they see the Miller Science Building at Fort Valley, and they realize that, oh, that was our family. And so that's been very powerful. E.E. Green was one of the very early, if not the first, African American physicians in Macon. And so at a time when African Americans could not get medical care with dignity, he provided that, and is buried here. So what we want to focus on are a few of these people, both men and women, because so often women get left out of the story. Even the story of civil rights, we hear about Martin, Malcolm, and we don't hear about some of the women who were the strategists. So we wanted to make sure that we included women in this. We also wanted to make sure we included some of the churches, because the churches are essential. So Stewart Chapel, AME Church, Turner Tabernacle, Washington Avenue Presbyterian Church, some Tremont Temple, which is no longer here, but was essential to both the movement immediately before slavery ended and after. And so that's something a lot of times people don't know, that some of these institutions existed during slavery. Yeah. And so this is an opportunity to know that, and to know the final resting place. So Linwood Cemetery. A lot of people know about Rose Hill, but they don't know about Oak Ridge, which is behind Rose Hill, which is where a lot of enslaved people were buried. And so that you may have family who's buried there, and they have some great programs they do in conjunction with Historic Macon to adopt a grave. So I've done that, to adopt a grave of ancestors, to help keep it clean and let them know that we're still here. Yeah. We're going through a lot, but we're still here.
Yeah, I know a lot of people are looking forward to being able to check this out. Very quickly before we let you go, in this month of Black History Month, we also want to talk about you, because I am aware that you were able to make history with the Bibb County Superior Court as the first African American and youngest person to hold the title of Chief Deputy Clerk. So talk a little bit about that really briefly.
Okay. Well, I'm a FAMU grad, so no matter what, I always had to let people know I'm FAMU made, Tulane Law, and practiced for a long time, and then I got into politics. So I ran politics with some of my friends, so we were among the first African American women to run campaigns. And the opportunity came to convince a friend of mine to run, Erica Woodford, and who was successful, and I agreed to come on and be her chief deputy. I don't think when we started, I think one of the things that happened by being young is that you see this right here, you don't necessarily see the broad picture. So we never went into it thinking, oh, I'm gonna be the first of anything. It's like, we just gotta do this job, and we gotta do it well, and in a way that our community is never, that this community is never ashamed of us, that they can always walk into the clerk's office and be proud of the work that we've done. And so that's kind of how that came about. I'm not the youngest. We were in a meeting recently, and I was like, remember we used to be the youngest people in the room, and now we're not.
Well, thanks so much for joining us today and sharing all this information. I know a lot of people are looking forward to seeing that exhibit in the summer, so we'll be looking to follow up on that. And thank you all for sticking with us. We'll be back after this.
You can hear our earlier Hidden Histories interview with Brenda Williams, as well as other Black History facts, by visiting the People You Should Know page on 13WMAZ.com. We'll be right back.